Hello. I'm recording yet another live update from Ukraine. I stopped counting the days of the war because it's obvious at this point that we are not dealing with something like we witnessed in Georgia, this so-called 5-day war back in 2008. 2008. But we are dealing with a long conflict, so I don't want to tire you with, day 20, day 26, and so on. But I will rather record brief updates on the situation generally, and then focusing on something specific I want to take as the thought of the day, so to speak, some aspect of this war that I think is important for you to realize. Today I'm going to speak about a myth of invincible Russian army. I think this is something that really requires a lot of attention, and I'm going to just work with this topic in several small highlights. But first I will start with the situation on the ground here. It's obvious, as I just said, that this war is going to be much longer than Putin initially expected and then we initially hoped for. We have 19th day, I think, today, and it's clear that we are facing the situation of a stalemate. The war is turning into a positional conflict. Not to say that our soldiers or Russian side have dug trenches and stopped at some point. No, there is a very intensive relocation of troops of both on both sides. There is very intensive fighting going on. People I trust who report from the front lines, both experts, journalists, and participants of the fighting, they all say the situation on all fronts is difficult. It's nothing like we have won this war or Russians are winning. It's far from obvious what will happen, but it's clear that the blitzkrieg has not happened, and it was clear on the third day of the war already, but now it's turning into a really tedious, long, and probably still very bloody conflict that will see many more deaths of civilians and of fighters on both sides. Yesterday we had this terrible hit by rockets of a military base close to Lviv. I actually woke up in early morning, about 4:30 or 5, from a wave of blast that set on alarms of cars. So like boom, and then cars. And I was sure that bombs are falling quite close to our house, but in fact it was 20 plus kilometers, so 15 plus miles or 10 plus miles from our house, but it was like 8 winged rockets that hit this military base. And the blast was so powerful as to send waves 25 kilometers or so. There are reported casualties of by different counts, 30 to 50 people and many more wounded. I think most of them are actually civilians who worked in this military base, because soldiers were in mass not there at the time. So it's again, it's more about civilian death than soldiers. So far, Ukrainian side has reported something between 1,200 and 1,500 soldiers who died in battle, and of course many more wounded. So today it was relatively peaceful. Lviv is continuing to live its own life with receiving refugees and helping the front lines, but obviously it is very intense and very stressful, as we are being targeted more and more. If before that Western Ukraine was relatively safe, for the last 2-3 days we really feel afraid of various dangers like bombardments or rocket shellings, and so on. More and more people are leaving, especially taking children, families outside Lviv. Very tragic situation is developing in Mariupol. It was reported today that well over 2,000 civilians are dead from shellings and from various unfavorable conditions of life, cold, dehydration, and so on. And Russians are not allowing the civilians out of the city. So it's a full-blown humanitarian disaster that is developing there. Even the Pope mentioned this in his prayer yesterday on Sunday, that the city of Mary, Mariupol, is suffering this terrible humanitarian crisis in the midst of Europe in the 21st century, and nothing can be done about that. Okay, now back to our main topic about Russian army. I just wanted to give you several highlights of what is going on, because I keep hearing from people from the West this kind of weak and sometimes even hypocritical position that a Russian army is so strong, Putin is so determined to destroy Ukraine, that please stop resistance. There is no sense to resist, because there is no way you can win the war with Russia. So the less you fight, the more the less civilian suffering you will see, the more people can safely leave the country. We are offering you refuge, we are offering you blankets and water as humanitarian help. What else do you want from us? Stop fighting with Russians. I'm just putting it very brutally, but that's what it comes down to. There were so many initiatives with my friends in Western Europe specifically, not so much in North America, but especially in Western Europe, who tried to raise some money to help army, not to buy weapons, but to buy, say, blood-stopping medicine or some other supplies for the non-lethal supplies for the army. And people with this sick but pacifistic approach say, oh, we would like to donate to the refugees, but we don't want to donate to the army. And this is something that really outrages me, because you don't understand that we are protecting our own country. And to offer refuge and to offer humanitarian help to people who have to flee from their own country, to abandon it, to leave it to the enemy, is really hypocritical and doesn't help to save the situation for us. And you have to understand that it doesn't help to save the situation for you too, because once Putin is done with Ukraine, he will, mark my word, he will move forward. He will not stop with the borders of EU or NATO countries. But anyway, our army is showing that Russian army is not invincible. This myth of great Russian civilization, great Russian world, great Russian army, and great Russian culture has been cultivated over decades, if not centuries, and the Western civilization fell a victim to this myth. You guys all have in your universities Russian chairs and Russian studies and great Russian literature and great Russian anything and everything, and you think that Russia is like the greatest civilization on earth, second only to your own civilization. And that's not the case, because if Russia was quite strong as a Soviet Union, you have to remember the Soviet Union was an effort by several nations, Russian and Ukrainian and Belarusian and Baltic and Georgian and so on. But if we are looking at the Russian army today, it's much weaker even than it was in Soviet days in Afghanistan or in other conflicts. I loved this funny image I stumbled across on the internet of a guy who is looking without glasses and sees this powerful army, and then when he takes on glasses he sees burning tanks. So I hope that Ukrainian army is providing these good glasses for Western observers today to show you what really this Russian army is. Just to give you several examples, I'm watching many channels on the internet for live reporting from the front lines, and many soldiers who were Russian soldiers who were taken captives by Ukrainian army, they are testifying to extremely bad technical condition, logistical condition, and military spirit condition of Russian army. And we are seeing some incredible illustrations of that. I won't show you this video, but some soldiers of ours filmed a video of a dead body of a Russian machine gun man who was actually chained to a pillar, a metal pillar, not to leave his position, and he died there from frost, from cold during the night. So they just recovered the body in the morning of a soldier with his machine gun dead, being chained by leg to a pillar. No civilized army ever does that. Then there is this almost anecdotal, humorous story that Russians are using cell phones, ordinary cell phones of Ukrainian providers, to conduct sometimes like super secret negotiations, the negotiations between themselves, communications that are supposed to be super secret, but they are using just ordinary 4G connection. And our journalists started to dig into this mystery. Why would Russian army use this? Because usually army is supposed to have their own communication systems. So what they found out is that before the war, Russians spent like billions on developing their own communication system, and it was dependent on 4G towers from mobile connection, but highly encrypted. So they would connect to Ukrainian 4G towers and then use their own encrypted communications. But what happened is that nothing was coordinated. So when they entered Ukraine, their artillery destroyed all 4G facilities in Ukraine, in certain areas, and they killed their own connection system. So they didn't have other choice as to take phones from people in Ukraine and use the phones for communication. And generally speaking, this intercepted talks by Russian soldiers. Sometimes they have conversations among themselves. Sometimes they are calling their mothers or spouses back in Russia. They are so revealing. I wish I could have time to subtitle some of them for you to listen, but some of them are panic and lost. Some of them are describing how they loot civilian houses, abandoned civilian houses and shops, how they take silver left by people or some valuables from their apartments and from various stores. And some of them are extremely cynical, like this man who is complaining to his wife that a large part of his battalion has been killed. And he says, but we have only 3 days for rotation. So the wife says, okay, then you return home in 3 days. And he says, no, I will not take this rotation. They are paying me $2,000 per month for this campaign. So I will not go home yet. I will take my chances for another 20 days or so to make this $2,000. And you wonder, like, how does it come together in one head, this terror of war? And he really seems to be sorry for what is going on, at least with his own comrades. He is kind of sorry for the fact that they are killing civilians, but he is not willing to take advantage of a legitimate way to go away for rotation, but for the sake of $2,000 he wants to stay and to continue killing civilians and losing his friends and endangering his own life. So just to give you an example of what they leave behind is this short video that shows one of extremely well-off towns next to Kyiv. It used to be very well-developed, beautiful, expensive housing, and this is what is left from that. The footage is really like from Stalingrad, from the World War II. With our soldiers have liberated the place, and they just found so many tanks and armed vehicles that were burnt or simply abandoned by Russians, and the city is wiped out basically. It doesn't exist any longer. Okay, enough for today. I urge you to pray for Ukraine. I urge you to put more pressure on your governments to do something. We are already in the midst of the World War III. I think the cost of intervening is less than cost of postponing the intervention for the Western nations. And by intervention, of course, I don't mean necessarily sending your soldiers here, but some kind of help is necessary. Closing the sky, no-fly zone, providing Ukraine with effective ways to fight in the sky. First of all, to cover from rockets and bombardments is essential. Otherwise we will be losing more and more civilians without even any military sense, because there is no considerable advancement on the part of Russian troops, and there will be none, hopefully in the next week or so. They simply have no manpower for that. They would need at least twice as much troops as they have on ground today to make any considerable advancement to encircle the capital or to do any other major breakthroughs. And they cannot do that, so they just simply purposelessly destroy the country and kill civilian people. I hope this will stop soon. Thank you very much for watching this, and please spread this so that we get more support from people in our fight for Europe, for our own country and for the world. Thank you.